The objectives and measurement system in organizational change has to be viewed from two perspectives. The first one is from the perspective of a particular project. What are its measures of success? How do you know that the project is succeeding? What are the indicators that it is in trouble? The second perspective involves the entire company. Anytime a company's future is being evaluated, senior management must also ask if its measures of company success truly evaluate what the organization needs to become. Old measures of financial health, stockholder value, and customer service may be inadequate or misleading. As previously mentioned, one avenue of measuring company success is through the use of the balanced scorecard. The balanced scorecard has 4 components: financial health, customer satisfaction and growth, internal efficiency, and learning and growth of employees. While a fuller view of the balanced scorecard is beyond the scope of this presentation, it's important to note what the balanced scorecard is not. It is not a way to force-fit your current measurement system into these concepts. Your current measurement system should be thoroughly evaluated and, if necessary, thrown out. The balanced scorecard emphasis on measures of success other than financial is also for multiple reasons. First of all, financial measures are lagging indicators of company health. That is, by the time they are calculated, it's too late to do anything about it. By creating a balanced scorecard using leading indicators, organizations can get a heads up as to oncoming trouble. They then can address these problems before it shows up in the bottom line. As you can see in this graphic, the measures of learning and growth, that is, the human resource element of the organization, provides the earliest indicator of problems in the organization. Problems with morale, turnover, job satisfaction, lack of training opportunities, etc., provide indications that all is not well with the organization. These problems then show up in measures of internal efficiency, such as poor quality, production problems, late deliveries, etc. These issues can cause problems with the organization's customers, whose abandonment of the organization's products causes financial measures to decline. Let's now take a look at the next step, developing the implementation plan. We have found that the success of any organizational change in implementing a vision is caused by several factors, what we call the equation of change. These factors are measurement, technique, control, focused persistence, resources, and consensus. The measurement factor is the degree to which your organization accurately and reliably measures the right aspects of its organization. I've already discussed how to do this by using the balanced scorecard. The second factor is technique. How effective are the techniques you're using to make successful organizational change? This also involves the knowledge, skills, and practices that Tom discussed previously. The third factor is control. How much do you control the means to make change happen? The fourth factor is focused persistence. How much do you use good project management techniques and assign the most qualified and motivated people to the change effort? The fifth factor is resources. To what extent do you give your teams sufficient time, information, money, access, and equipment to do the job right? Whether it is openly discussed or not, the amount of resources is a true measure of an organization's commitment to change. The last factor is the most important but the hardest to quantify: consensus. To what degree do influential and powerful people in your organization agree with and promote the organizational changes you are considering? Like any equation, the greater each factor, the greater the chances for success. The effects are synergistic. However, like any equation using multiplication, if one factor is 0, the chances of success are 0. For the moment, though, I've talked enough about concepts, processes, and other abstract ideas. Let's talk more about a concrete example. One of my organization's clients is a large producer of the world's oil, whose resources are mostly in the Middle East. As part of a workshop, we developed 4 scenarios for them. The organization then developed strategic plans in response to each of these scenarios. As an added bit of information, there has recently been much publicity regarding new biotechnologies to produce plastics and energy-bearing oils from plant materials. Let's first talk about these scenarios, all of which would take place about 10 years from now. The first scenario is what we call the status quo. In this scenario, oil prices have stabilized between $32 and $35 a barrel. Alternative fuels are not economically viable, and significant new resources of oil have not been found. The region is relatively stable for the Mideast, that is. The next scenario is moderately positive. Not only are all the positive factors that I just described in place, but the company has been able to diversify into other businesses, mostly high-tech and banking. This diversification will allow them to prosper when their once plentiful oil becomes depleted. The third scenario we call socioeconomic order threatened. In this scenario, Europe, Asia, and the United States are in recession, and so the need for fossil fuel is decreasing. Oil has been at $17 a barrel for a decade because of new production in the Caspian Basin and in Iraq. There is political and social turmoil in the Gulf and social unrest among the guest workers in that country. Alternative sources of energy are viable and increasingly so. In the fourth scenario, socioeconomic collapse, Europe, the United States, and Asia are in recession, with their politicians claiming that the $30 a barrel price of oil of the past decade is the reason. The West is investing heavily in alternative fuels, with predictions of the next decade suggesting oil will be at $12 per barrel. However, the United States is increasingly becoming dependent in the short term on Mideast oil, as few alternatives exist to light crude that will be available soon. Asia has turned increasingly away from Mideast oil, taking advantage of cheap Chinese coal. Tension between the United States and China have prevented the U.S. from using this resource. Violence throughout the Mideast is at its height, with much of the region occupied by U.S. and NATO troops stationed there to halt violence and to ensure oil production. Increasingly harsh treatment of guest workers has caused several riots with little relief in sight. Let's take a look at the consequences and opportunities for this organization. In two of the scenarios, the organization doesn't have to change much, yet. Oil is still a limited commodity, and they still have a lot of it. It would still be to their advantage to diversify their economy, as eventually the oil will run out, and something must be found to replace it as an energy source and as a source for plastics. In this case, the organization's vision and mission probably will not have to change as yet. In two of the scenarios, the organization's core competence, the cheap production of oil, will soon no longer be viable. What alternatives exist for this company? Should it go out of business? Perhaps not. Even in a world where oil production is not as necessary as before, they still do have resources they could use. As a way to expand their presence, this company a few years ago expanded significantly into oil and gas transportation and delivery of gasoline in Europe. While alternative fuels might significantly reduce the need for gasoline, there still might be a need to deliver some kind of fuel, perhaps hydrogen, to consumers and liquefied natural gas to power plants. Perhaps the vision of the company can change from being a producer of oil to being the deliverer of energy products to their customers. It's all too easy to shrug off these pessimistic scenarios. I can almost guarantee you that these scenarios will not come about, or that even some aspects of one scenario will happen. However, different portions of them may, and given the significant time it takes to change a company's vision and implement change, it is in the best interests of senior management to plan accordingly and to keep all of its options open. As a side note, British Petroleum, one of the largest oil firms in the world, who almost certainly uses scenario planning techniques, has the goal of 25% of its profits coming from renewable energy resources. It is also a heavy investor in developing fuel cells. Fuel cells allow cars to efficiently burn hydrogen instead of gasoline. Monsanto Corporation has already produced bacteria that produce plastics and has developed methods of extracting plastics from the remnants of corn production. Are these examples of foresight or folly? I can assure you that with a solid organizational change approach, such as the one I have presented today, your visioning will not be folly. It will produce real outcomes and will lead to increased productivity. Thank you.